This is AV Week, your weekly wrap-up of audio-visual news and information. My name is Tim Albright. I am your host. With us this week is Mr. John Green from Advanced AV. How are you, sir?
Wonderful. Great day today, isn't it? Nice start of the weekend.
Nice start to a holiday weekend.
Yes, it is.
Also with us, we have two first-timers, so John, be nice to them. John's an old pro at this. First up is our buddy Clint Hoffman from Kramer US. He is the Vice President of Marketing. Hello, sir.
Hello. How you doing, Tim? Glad to be here.
Absolutely. And also with us is a young man I met a couple months ago. His name is Ernie Beck. He is the Senior Sales Engineer for Sonera. How are you, sir?
I'm good, Tim. How are you?
Good.
Good.
We're going to do a couple things today. First and foremost, it's very interesting. Every once in a while, a story will come out that I will get a number of emails, texts, instant messengers, and things of that nature on. This is one of those weeks. Let's see if I can't really screw up the video feed here. And it's a story about, well, it's an OLED story, right? And for those of you who aren't familiar with this program and kind of some of the technology that we kind of like here, one of them is OLED. LG this week, and this is from Innovate on the Net as well as CNET, is the two of the stories that we're covering with us. LG is showing off a quote-unquote press-on wallpaper TV under 1 millimeter thick. Now, what makes this possible is the OLED technology. Mr. Green, we're going to start with you on this. First question is, how quickly or how likely is this to ever see the light of day? And the second thing is what are some of the applications for it?
I'm not quite sure as to when, but I think there's obviously a pressing need. In reviewing the article, what surprised me the most was the size and the cost. And they were talking about it being, a holdback for success. And I'm thinking, you got to be kidding me. People are willing to spend, $20, $30, $40,000 on other types of displays, and this was listed as $9,000 for a 4K resolution at 65 inches. Sign me up. There's applications everywhere for this, and then the other thing I think that probably some of the OLED manufacturers are missing is size. 65 is great, 100 would be wonderful, but so is 20. I mean, the ability to slap up a presentation into a huddle space at the moment that you need it. Oh, yeah, I got customers are salivating for that idea now. So it's a very interesting idea. I chuckle about it too because as Clint and I were talking before, I'm an old timer. I can't figure out where's the gazinta, what's the connector, because that's how I determine where it's to be used, how it's supposed to be used, and what I'm going to connect to it. I'd love to hear from anybody else. Where's the gazintas?
Okay, yeah, you're right. As you're looking at this picture, there is a millimeter's not it's not very thick. So you're right. There is.
Now, if it's a thought transfer control device too, now we're.
Well, I wonder if they're going to take cues from things like wireless streaming, wireless presentation, and kind of build that technology into it, or if it's through some sort of millimeter thick ribbon cable with some sort of external component somewhere else that resides in the room. But it's a great question. That article shows the device actually just through magnets just snapping right into place.
Again, if you're walking around with your BYOD and you're walking down the hall and the vice president says, hey, let's talk about the presentation, let's go to the huddle space, and you slap up a 20-inch OLED in the wall and you take your video off you bring your own device and you throw it up against the 20-inch, that's sexy. That's sexy and effective. I mean, that's a real-time use.
Okay, so let's kind of walk this through then. Ernie, as a sales engineer, are we getting to the point where connectors don't matter? Because here's the thing, there's been lots written and said, both positive and negative, about the HDMI connector and comparing it to the old DVI and now DisplayPort and Thunderbolt and all this jazz. Are we almost moving beyond the connector, like some people have said we're moving beyond physical media, and say, screw it, you know what? It's going 20 feet. I can push 1080 that far.
Yeah, I don't think at the moment the technology is there where we can start designing connectors and cabling outside of the system altogether. I think much like the transition from analog to digital, there's going to be the transition from digital to wireless, and there needs to be sensitivity to both, because the products are out there, but they're still in many cases they're still early adoptive, and they're getting better, but I don't think we're at a place yet where we can completely remove the connection from the room. I still have clients that are migrating from VGA to HDMI, so getting them from analog to bunny hop over to completely wireless sharing, I don't think it's there yet, but it's getting there.
Well, and the other thing that you brought up too about the cables and stuff, the mounts. What does somebody like a chief manufacturing do? Because they start making magnetic plates that you screw onto the wall. I mean, there's a major impact on a lot of things, and I agree. We're still solving some of the real mundane issues, but that is a clear roadmap, and it really does answer a ton of questions. An end user is going to the labor savings alone. The labor savings on something of that device, remarkable. The ability to be flexible and to move it to the client's needs and the time and space needed.
Yeah, I mean, think about the applications that
endless.
opens the door in healthcare, automotive. I mean, it's just where you couldn't put display before, now you can, and I think it's only going to be a boon for the digital signage market, because they can incorporate this type of technology more into environmental mediascapes.
You got an auto mechanic. You have an auto mechanic that slaps it to the underside of the hood. It's he's looking into the engine. He looks up and there's a YouTube being transmitted to the flat panel display. Oh, come on! Because again, it's endless. You don't have to struggle to come up with ideas for this.
Well, no, and I was talking with a young man this week about he works for a control manufacturer, and they also make digital video stuff. He was talking about the built-in apps, right?
Right.
You could built in basically virtually any app. He was talking about specifically the 4K Amazon Prime, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's built in right there. If you have a 4K display and you have this built-in app, that's how you're going to get 4K delivered to this TV. You don't need a connector then.
Well, that's the other thing, and I'm glad you mentioned it. I think that the other thing that says, is this a product ready? Is this something that does it have to be doing this? It's remarkable. Again, it's 4K, 65-inch, and the size of it, but the need for that kind of resolution may not necessarily be there. A smaller size and less resolution is probably acceptable for 25% of the applications. It's the immediacy and the availability of taking and putting information in front of you. That's how I look at it. And I wouldn't want, we can't deliver till we have the 4K ready. Well, I think that lower resolution is probably acceptable in some situations.
On OLED, absolutely it is. I mean, I've been to 1080p on OLEDs. It's gorgeous.
Right.
Clint, you guys have got a fairly decent, a fairly decently evolved wireless platform now with the Vio. I'm going to take a step back here and ask the question: how do you get people to migrate maybe from the VGA, like Ernie said, he still has people going from VGA to HDMI. How would you get someone maybe going from VGA straight to a Vio, straight to a wireless system, or is it, maybe there's an intermediary there that people aren't quite comfortable jumping that far, that quickly?
Well, there's actually a combination of both in the marketplace. There are applications for wireless presentation and collaboration use in classrooms and auditoriums and huddle rooms, but there are also certain classrooms that just aren't ready to migrate to that particular level, K through 12, for example. They just may need a more simple system with a little HD-based T and a simple scaler or switcher in it, and then that solves theirs. It may be a simple wall control with push buttons on it. That might be the price range that they need to live in, and it does everything that they need that to do for them. But on this OLED for a second, if I may, if I could go back to that for a minute. About 15 years ago, one of the smartest chief technology engineer type guys that I've come across in the business was telling me about OLED for the first time. And he said, one day you're just going to take these things like paper and put them on the wall. And what size television you want? you'll put that many tiles up next to each other, and then you'll have that size television. And it's kind of reminiscent of Back to the Future 2, I think, when Marty's in his home and that whole wall is like a giant TV. And you're looking at this image in this LG article, and they could put multiple of those units together. Now, if you're sending in the future an 8K signal, you can do various things. You don't have to have one giant 8K picture on that big screen. You could, or you could break it up into and have multiple images on that one seamless-looking screen. It also digital signage, absolutely, because where we're going to be using video walls today. Imagine how easy it would be to do a video wall when you're just putting it up right next to each other and it's magnetic, and then take into consideration the viewing angle on these things. The viewing angle on OLED is just amazing.
Yeah. That is an incredible idea. I didn't even think about that. The fact that you can actually just kind of, click these things together and put in together multiple different displays, and you could just have your own little video wall. I'm looking at the bezel on this thing, and I actually don't see one. So,
the one thing so in the article there was actually a link to another article which talked about how they're planning to reduce costs, and MIT's come up with a solution about actually printing these OLEDs, which
that was great,
remarkable. Yeah, I mean it's really, I mean, if that really takes off, you have to kind of look at that in the big picture of production of everything. And when it comes to things like 3D printed objects, printing OLEDs, as we move into the future, the power of production is going to be more in the hands of consumers and small businesses and other companies that are entering into the marketplace, because they have access to things like 3D printing machines, OLED printing machines. I mean, take it 20 years from now, the application could be, you could be printing your own screens for whatever applications you see in your house.
Yeah, there was even, I mean, a couple of years ago when they started talking about OLED and the possibility of it, I mean, we now have a printing machine that prints an OLED. Well, it could be printing a shirt that is an entire OLED surface itself. And you're talking about digital signage, and you're not carrying a sandwich board. You're lit up and walking down the street carrying the message.
Yeah. And then that gets back into the connectivity issue, where you are then at that point either having some sort of tail tying into your T-shirt, or it's wireless. To the wireless.
Right. You're streaming it from a much higher solution.
Yeah.
If you're going to build that big a screen on your, let's just say, the wall in your living room, there might also be an option. Who knows? I don't know. There might also be an option where you recess a box in the wall before you put the screen up, and it's all the electronics are connected behind the screen.
Well, Clint, you just now you're just going to get my gears turning, because you're talking about an entire wall in your home. And think about this. I haven't done much research into OLED and interactivity, but John, I know that you've posted some work on the Internet of Things too, and think about that. Think about visualization and dashboards, and how really what things like the Internet of Things and big data and cloud all really boil down to is viewing and analyzing metrics and analytics and on a dashboard. Well, think about that in terms of how that ties in with OLED. Now I can make let's say, an entire wall of my kitchen kind of like the command center for my entire home, where the media is on one screen. I've got my HVAC system on another screen, or my home energy use, or water usage in my home. All of that.
Yeah, I did the possibilities are endless, and somebody should be rushing to this technology. I mean, if they're doing what they're doing right now and they're printing it and they're getting that close, don't stop.
Yeah, and throw in the different ways that you could control that, because at CES for the last several years, gesture and voice control has been heavily demonstrated throughout that show, and it's pretty impressive what they can do with both of those, quite frankly.
Yep.
TV on, please.
Right.
Well, it is.
Show me my HBC. Boom. It's like.
Well, again, let's just take like the times when the phone had a cord to it. Well, this is now it's a teleconferencing system on a wall, and you're having a teleconferencing, and you use your hand gesture to drag the conversation in from the living room to the kitchen, and talk in the kitchen, and take it from the kitchen upstairs. You can carry the person with you if the wallpaper is now the OLED and hand and gesture tech. Very cool stuff.
No, it is very cool. The last thing I'll say about this is I wrote an article a number of months ago about the green part of AV and looking more at it from the production standpoint rather than saving energy. If they're starting to print OLED screens, that is an incredible ecology saving. That's incredibly green compared to the way they're doing LCD and OLED now with gases and some rather dangerous chemicals.
And OLED uses considerably less power than our existing technologies.
Absolutely.
And this is going to sound relatively strange, but again, the 3D printing topic alone is scary because if I can get a roll of OLED or whatever I got to do to get the materials to do the printing, don't take this wrong, I don't have to wait for the manufacturer to make the product for me anymore.
And it's going to be like, John, it's going to be like that for virtually most of the products we use and consume on a daily basis.
Right. I mean, I can, and again, if a customer says to me, I need a 40-inch, well, it should be printed by tomorrow morning, we're good to go. Or, and augment what's already being supplied by somebody else. It's remarkable stuff. And this is one of those technologies. My wife and I look at each other, and she's not a technical person, but I pose as one, and I start telling these stories, and she says, "Yeah, it's time for me to check out." And that's it really is. I mean, this is one of those technology. Yeah, I don't think I'm going to make this one.
Well, Clint, from a manufacturer standpoint, John brings up a good point. At that point, do you guys kind of market yourselves as suppliers of CAD drawings, I guess, at that point, where hey, buy a Kramer, you guys released your touch panels this week and your control systems, made them available. You talked about them and showing them up at ISC. Presumably they'll be at Infocom, next month, where you guys say, okay, John Green from Advanced AV or Ernie, here's the CAD drawings. You guys do with it what you will.
Tim, I'm not 100% sure I'm following you. Help me understand a little bit more.
So, in other words, instead of selling the actual physical product, you sell them a CAD drawing. You sell them the schematics, and you let them print themselves.
The 3D file, you're saying.
3D file, yes.
I hadn't thought about that. That's pretty interesting. Yeah, go print your own product based on this.
I think it's going to be less about, there's never. I mean, not never. It's less likely that we're going to be able to print things like complex DSPs that Kramer would make,
right?
But more about connectors, smaller widgets, and really by the time we get to that point, we're going to be looking at. I mean, just think about how the OLED, with an integrated smaller camera in a much more futuristic space is going to look. I mean, I think it's just going to start replacing some of the more commoditized pieces of installation process.
So more like smaller Gizintas and Gizautas and.
Sure. Yeah.
All right. Let's kind of.
But the other thing, but an example of it's where people like Kramer, they're always on the leading edge of things anyway. I mean, they're trying to your cloud-based AV control system. I mean, I would imagine that, okay, we've printed the device out, we're hanging it on the wall, something's got to be controlled. So, their, a cloud-based service that they provide today will probably be effective to make that device on the wall work better or what it's supposed to do. So, I wouldn't discount everybody. I'm just saying that it's going to change the paradigm in a lot of things.
Just look at what we're doing here. We're using a social media platform to have a video conference when 10 years ago, video conferencing was done with very expensive equipment by people with a great deal of experience in it, and now we get an email from Tim, we click that link, and boom, we're having a video conference on a social media platform. The point being that the Pro AV industry and everything that we've always done is moving in this kind of direction. It's moving in a software direction. It's moving towards the IT system that you have in the building. You're going to put your video over the IT. You're going to do your cloud-based control. You're going to have your wireless presentation and collaboration systems, and you'll be able to remote people into that classroom with those devices. It's just this. You can see where everything is going. It's just natural that the Pro AV industry is going to go along.
Yeah, absolutely. This shows that we're going to shift gears here real quickly, guys. The headline sounds very evil and very the sky is falling. This is from NewsFactor, newsfactor.com. The U.S. supply of IPv4 addresses are going to run out soon, quote unquote, according to the article. It will happen sometime this summer. So, if you look at the solar eclipse and all that, the summer starts somewhere around June 20th, 21st, somewhere in there. 3 months later, so what is that, September 21st, we should be run out of IPv4 addresses. That's for the public internet, right? It leads me, though, to a broader question, and Ernie, we'll start with you on this. Are we at the point where we need to start, as integrators and as AV professionals, we need to start implementing IPv6 if we haven't done so already? Because I'll be very honest, my full-time job is I run a programming house out of St. Louis. Got a lot of really talented programmers, lots of different jobs here and there. I have yet to run into a job yet where we have started to implement IPv6. So are we there?
Let's look at the data. Really, what you look at is 2 billion people currently connected to the internet now, with a trajectory of close to 10 trillion devices connected to the internet in 10 years. IPv4 is going to be maxed out quicker than anybody realizes it. So absolutely, the need to start implementing IPv6 is here. As everything, and again, as the Internet of Things becomes more and more part of the conversation in the technology world, people are gonna start having connected everything in their home. So one person is going to have literally hundreds, if not thousands, of connected devices associated with them and them alone. So the need to have an infrastructure behind that, or an IP infrastructure behind that can support the move to the Internet of Things is crucial, because really it's already happening. It's been happening, and it's just now we're kind of waking up and realizing, oh my gosh, it's 2015. We've got some 3.5 billion things connected to the internet, if not more. It is absolutely necessary to start moving to that.
All right, John, from your standpoint, and as you're
You're gonna love this.
All right, go ahead.
I'm gonna take a little snarky attitude towards this whole thing. First off, I discovered this probably about a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago. I decided that this AVIT thing, I guess it's real. So I might as well go take a networking class. So I go to my Cisco website, and I take a networking class, and one of the topics was this specific subject, and I'm like, and it opened my eyes. I think that there's a lot of things that that we have to start to worry about. But my other reaction to it is, Ernie's too young to remember this. He was probably a baby in diapers, but Clint's been with me. Back in 1997, I built a bomb shelter for the Y2K episode that was going to occur. And then that kind of came and went without much of a hoof. And so now I get to sell powdered milk to all my neighbors. I think there's a lot of this stuff is technology fear to make something happen. This is real. I understand it's a real issue, and I understand it's happening. I just don't think it's that much of a crisis. And if you read the article, that's pretty much what they're saying. There's still pools of resources with the IP addresses available, and realistically, the river's going to run past us at a little bit later time. But you should. You should start to do it today in preparation.
It's really interesting, if I may, because I think in taking a look at this, hadn't been that familiar with it before we were going to talk about it today. There are like 4 billion IP4 addresses. There are 340 trillion capabilities with IPv6. So I think we just get excited as human beings when something like Y2K and this, it's cool. But I think they got it covered. It's another stat I saw was that imagine that all the IP4 addresses occupied the space of a postage stamp, then relatively speaking, the IPv6's addresses would occupy the space of a solar system. So I think, and companies like Facebook and Google, they're 100% internally IPv6. I read, and they're working on on taking that outward. So it's just, I think it's going to be something cool to talk about, as John said, more so than something we need to be worried about. I think IT managers need to worry about it.
Oh yeah. I think there's people that have bigger bigger things and planning that type of a situation. But I think as the IP fees, as those IP addresses get dumped and are taken up to sixes, it'll be a smoother transition other than the sky is falling.
Well, let me bring one more thing in here. Ernie's in the Baltimore area. Presumably, there's a fair amount of government work to be done in the Baltimore area. To be JITC compliant, the system, all the systems, including the AV system, has to have an IPv6. So, Ernie, maybe not the rest of us, because again, I'm in St. Louis. There's a few installations that are government run, but not quite as many as in the the Baltimore, Langley, DC area.
Mm-hmm.
Is it something that maybe if it depends on your clientele then?
I have to admit, being in the Baltimore area, we do have a lot of federal agencies here and in DC. I haven't bumped into this requirement, working in the federal space. So I'm really not qualified to answer that question. But what I will say is that, if we just look at the trend line from where we started to where we are today and how quickly we've gone to the amount of IP addresses in that short amount of time, I agree that it's not the sky is falling and we all shouldn't be turning off devices and disconnecting from the net. But if you just look at the proliferation of the internet, the reduced cost in sensors, actuators, electronics that are being connected to the internet, and the business applications in industry that is showing the clear savings, not only from a operational standpoint, but this is the year of climate change and climate action, and that people need to start taking steps to be more energy efficient and to reduce their carbon emissions. Mm-hmm. The trend line is going to be exponential in how things become part of the internet, and it's going to just take off. And I feel like it's got to be part of the conversation. And IT managers and IT consultants need to be developing this and working it into their designs.
All valid points, Ernie. I agree with you, and I think that but again, some of this is so there's the Internet of Things, and then you got to start talking about the Internet of Things, and then you have to start to talk about what that's going to mean, and then you got to start to sell the stuff that people are going to use on this Internet of Things, and that's where these addresses. This is where the conversation of the addresses surround. Mm-hmm. So again, some of these things, and I guess I'm an old cynical guy, is that I've been around for 40 years. Some of it is marketing hype to get something sold.
Sure, I completely agree.
Okay.
One of the I wrote an article recently that addressed the push towards smarter buildings. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that I've been seeing a lot of, much like with the Internet of Things, is who's adopting it first, who's jumping on the bandwagon first, and who's putting something out there in terms of marketing, and how do we move past the marketing of these new technologies into something that's actionable. For the average AV integrator who might not know as much about this particular subject, how do they get into it and get beyond? Because when you actually dig down deep into some of these platforms, these smart building platforms that some AV manufacturers are promoting, you're really finding there's not much substance behind the marketing. There's a platform, but there's no training infrastructure. The interoperability isn't really there as much as it needs to be. So I agree. It's but the marketing is quickly going to be followed by action.
Again, I don't disagree with you, but it's one of those. The other thing that some experience has given me, and Infocom's a perfectly good discussion. We'll bump into each other as friendly competitors or whatever it might be, and we're standing in a bar, and those conversations will come down to something like this, and they'll say, "Hey, Ernie, you selling any of those blue boxes? Because I'm being told by the rep that they're going out the door like, it's like, and I'm going, am I missing a parade? I'm going to go kill my salespeople? Why don't they understand it's the Internet of Technology, Internet of Things, and this is really important? They should be selling OLED." Mm-hmm. And then realize I just waste a lot of people's time.
Yeah, I think it goes. That's a great point, John. I think it goes beyond what can I sell. Right. OLEDs, yes, that might be something I can sell.
Yeah, that's a practical thing. Yeah.
We start talking about 3D printing, it might not be something. The talk about IPv6 and the push for the Internet of Things is really it's just going to be a fundamental change in the way things are connected and communicated. It's not going to be something that an AV guy can go pull a SKU off and sell to somebody. It's going to be integrated into the components and the systems.
And I get it. This is this is one of those. I think it's a plumbing problem. I don't need to know how the water goes from here to here, but there better be a pipe somewhere, and somebody better be worrying about it.
Exactly. Exactly.
Well, let me pick on the marketing guy for a second.
Which one?
That would be great. The manufacturing marketing guy. Ernie and John bring up a good point, and this might be a little unfair. How do you help them move beyond the marketing hype? Because don't blow smoke up my skirt. There's marketing hype, right? I get it. I understand it. That there are going to be what's famously referred to as vaporware on the show floor at InfoComm. Absolutely, right? There's going to be somebody somewhere saying, come see my latest greatest snake oil. But as a manufacturer and as a marketing guy for the manufacturer, how do you help them say, what? Yeah, understand that there's some marketing speak here, but how do you help them move beyond that and do exactly what they're saying is take the actionable steps they need to take to help their salespeople, their sales engineer, and ultimately their clients, who really is kind of your client as well.
Understood. And anybody who knows me and happens to be watching and listening to this is going to say, "Oh my God, he's going to tell that story now." And I already told it to you right before this, right before we started today. But I think that story is my way of explaining the answer to your question. A long time ago, in a world far, far away, I worked for an AV integrator. And at that AV integrator, at that point in time, if you wanted to make any money, you sold one of three things from three companies. There were three companies that made products that made you money. That was Sony, Panasonic, and JVC. At that time, we had a rep for each one of those companies. One rep was in our building every Thursday. You called him because you had a problem. He got right back to you that day. He would drop things off on non-Thursdays if you needed something on his way to somewhere else. We sold an awful lot of that rep's product, an awful lot of that rep's product. Another rep, you called him. He was a great guy, a lot of fun to be with. You called him. Maybe he got back to you in 2 or 3 days. We sold some of their product. The third rep, for whatever reason, had run afoul of our owner and was not literally allowed in the building. We sold none of that product. So the answer to the question is, we're in a business about relationships. And every company that I've ever been fortunate to be with has recognized that. And we set ourselves up to go to market based on relationships. So you asked the question, how do you help these guys get past the vaporware? Well, where I am now and where I've always been is that you just have to be there 110%. We have a saying at Kramer Electronics, Kramer people make the difference. That's how we run our business. And I'm sure there's other companies that do the same. I'm not saying, but that being said, that is our operating philosophy. So when someone calls us, someone contacts us, we'll proactively put together education and take it out to the streets. Whatever the situation is, it's about us being there the minute they need us.
Yeah. Yeah, I second that. I think there's always it's a message. There's a marketing message, but the effectiveness of success is based upon the people that you can call and you can trust. I mean, you're in a booth, and if you're talking to a stranger or you're talking to somebody that's hired to give the speech, you're probably not going to feel comfortable with it. But if you walk over to Clint and go, "Clint, really? Yes, trust it. Got to go."
Yeah.
I mean, that's what happens.
And Clint, that's a great anecdote there. I came into the AV industry with there's a Rolodex of manufacturers and reps, and there's customer support. I mean, it's a lot to wrap your mind around who's the person to talk to. But you make a great point, which is I've had questions like this, and the hypothetical questions I was raising earlier about, well, what's the real substance behind some of this marketing stuff is the ones that maintain my business are the ones that answer my phone calls and are honest and say, I don't know. To be honest with you, I don't know. I have to talk with marketing. I'll have to talk with development. Why don't we set up a call with one of our engineers to discuss about this more and maybe learn more? And to me, that's to your point, Clint. It's it's the ones that are willing to listen to their customers and adapt to what their questions are and be honest if they don't know the answer.
Yeah, we always say that, I always say that all things being somewhat equal, The products don't have to be perfectly equal. They got to be somewhat equal. People will buy from people they like and trust.
I'm gonna tell you a story. I'm gonna try to make it as short as possible, but it kind of ties things together. We did a rather substantially large project, and there was a manufacturer of which we gave, I'm going to throw some random numbers, $100,000 worth of their boxes, and we gave the order on Monday, and the next thing I heard was from my field engineer, my engineer of record who was on site, that said, get him off of site. And I said, what are you talking about? He says, that manufacturer is here. I said, why is he here? He said, he's telling the customer he thinks he made a bad choice and he should be buying the next version of the product. And I said, next version of the product, we just gave him $100,000 for today's products. The customer was upset because he thought that we had sold him a bill of goods. We had literally placed the order with the manufacturer for the product that hadn't shipped yet, and this person was wanting to sell the next thing. Now the problem is that form fits function. This blue box had to be a certain size with certain features, or it wouldn't fit into the space. He was selling a product that wouldn't fit in form or function, didn't have any of the features that the customer needed, and it just went on. And you're like, I fired him. I said, don't ever come in my building again. I said, that's the last purchase order that unfortunately I'll ever run for you. So there's some dangers in this stuff. I mean, we talk about the next technology. Don't sell what's today, brother. I mean, there's 20 different solutions within a variety of ranges that we can provide. And yes, it's exciting. And our job as salespeople, and our job as engineers, and our jobs to the customer is, here's your answer. You need to know that IPv6 is coming, and you should be concerned about it. But I got plenty of fours for you.
Yep.
Yeah, very good. And the last thing I'll say is I don't know. It is a very, very valuable phrase that I think that a lot of manufacturers, integrators, everybody down the line needs to be very comfortable saying, because you know what? I don't. There are very few people in this world that know everything, right? And I'm one of them that don't. I surround myself with really smart people. I surround myself with you three. I surround myself with the team here at AV Nation. That's why I surround myself with the people I do. So I don't know is incredibly valuable to my vocabulary in talking to clients and talking to my employees and talking to other people. And so, you know what? I don't know, but I'm pretty sure I think I know one or two people who might. And you go back to them and you say, give me some time, whether it's 5 minutes or maybe a couple of days. But most of the time, we'll be able to figure it out, figure it out together.
I'm gonna add right on to that, and not only that, shortening it up completely. The answer no is a valid answer.
Yep, agreed.
and if a customer says whatever the request, and you go no. And I've seen most people hesitate and go, well, aren't you supposed to say something else? No, that's not going to work. No. And the relationship starts anew. The conversation starts fresh. And we have been in situations where it goes, I don't know if you're telling me the truth, but I can't believe you said that to me. And the relationship starts. So
yeah, I also like the Miracle on 34th Street approach with the Macy's Santa Claus. We don't have that, but those guys do. Because saying that doesn't mean that you're now putting somebody in a camp where they're going to buy all that person's stuff and never come back. The fact that you actually told them you don't have it, but you told them where they can find it, they'll come back to you the next time they need something. Instead of this gamesmanship of, no, I can't mention that company name ever.
Yeah, we're probably off topic, but I was at a meeting last night, and we were talking about this. We were talking about the subject again, very similar. And there were 2 or 3 people that it wasn't my customer. Somebody else was recounting the story, and it was about collaboration. Like the VIA stuff. But they were talking about the solution, and everybody has struggles when it gets to the network. It works on that network, but it doesn't work on this network, whatever it might be. And there were 2 approaches. One manufacturer went in and was talking to the engineer that designed the entire network for 60,000 employees, and they were doing the presentation, and they couldn't. And the network engineer goes, "That will not work on our network. We're this, and we need this, and you have to have this." So they left the sales meeting and they called the rep and they said, we weren't talking to the right person. That was approach 1. Approach 2 was the other one that said, you know what, you're absolutely right. We don't have that. and yeah, that's something that we're going to have. Do you mind if I talk a little bit more? And took 15 minutes of somebody that had network experience, over 60,000 employees, took the feedback and go, thank you very much, we're absolutely going to implement that in the next model. As a matter of fact, how about if I build one of those things and ship it to you and you tell me what it is, because you probably have an engineering lab there? Yes. Who won that one?
I understand.
Who won?
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's talk about Apple for a couple of seconds here, and you know, this not beat up on Apple, but you know, I like Apple. They're nice. I wish they'd come back with a 17-inch PowerBook, but you know, that's just me.
I wish they never got rid of cover flow.
Well, yeah, there's that too.
That's just, you know, those little things.
So, according to Wall Street Journal, this article is a link to Ars Technica, which has the whole thing, but it says that the Apple TV is dead. Not that it was ever there, but it was, you know, different rumors and stuff. If you read the Steve Jobs biography, he makes iterations to it and predictions for the last 3 or 4 years now. Well, according to them and the quote-unquote people familiar with the matter, tell the Wall Street Journal that the Apple team, quote-unquote, had a small team working on the TV set, but they have disbanded it, and Apple is focusing on set-top boxes, which I found rather interesting. John, we'll start with you on this. What does it tell us that Apple has kind of apparently, according to those in the know, kind of gotten rid of the team that was doing the TV and are focusing more on individual little boxes that connect to displays?
Very smart people. I mean, the analysis is relatively in the article. There is not money in something like that. I think that the only disagreement is that they could put chocolate pudding in a box and sell it with an Apple logo, and people would buy it. I mean, they would always gain a market share with whatever they sold. But I think that their analysis is dead on. I really do. I think that, as we talked about the OLED in the beginning, I think that's what it's going to be. I think it's going to be the apps, which they own. I think it's going to be, you know, other devices driving to an inexpensive display. Clint and I, when we started out, how much money were we making on 20-inch TV sets?
Yeah, a lot.
All right, I can't tell you, because I think I'd have to tell the priest first how much money I was making on them.
Yeah, it must be nice, guys.
Right. Right. But today, I made a presentation in front of a board of directors about digital signage, and we were talking about displays. And they were sitting there, and these were tech people, and their comment to me was, wait, your business model still surrounds trying to make money on the display? Well, that's ridiculous. What? He said, it doesn't make any sense to do that. I mean, it's the monitoring of it, it's the, you know, it's the servicing of it, it's putting the content on it. I can't believe you're actually trying to make money off of the displays. And these are the people that were safeguarding us. So.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think, John, you hit the nail on the head. It's, you know, the money isn't in the hardware, especially for Apple, who makes, you know, what they'd like to say more, you know, more boutique or more specialized or niche products. Really, where Apple is going to be focusing on is the content piece and the on-demand piece, because as you see, things like Dish TV, HBO Now, even Xfinity or I think Fios is coming out with kind of a la carte, you know, content delivery service, because people are tired of paying in excess of $100 for 1,000 channels they don't need. And I think what Apple's doing is saying, you know what, the hardware piece, we're going to stick to what works for us, which is the iPhone, iPad, Mac. And on the TV side of things, we're going to continue to make the Apple TV, which has become, you know, one of the most wide adopted, you know, residential AV products. But now we're going to take a step further. Now we're going to start enabling content providers to have their grounds. So now all people have to do is buy the Apple TV, and those channels are already preloaded.
Right.
Do any of you guys have an Apple TV at home?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
And we're saying the Apple TVs in conference rooms as the collaboration hub. I mean,
sure. You know, but if you look at it, it's, you know, the Apple TV interface from what I have today versus what I had when I first bought it only 2 years ago. I've got triple the amount of apps and streaming services: Smithsonian Channel, National Geographic, you know, international channels. You know, of course, your Netflix and Amazons. but they're just becoming more and more a part of it, and it's really the way that the market is really driving what's going on here. And I think Apple made the right choice by pulling out of that hardware piece.
Yeah, Tim, you asked me earlier about people moving towards wireless collaboration in rooms versus the migration, just trying to get them off of VGA. We have the adoption curve, and you have the early adopters, and then you go up the curve till you get to the mass market, and that's a common thing that we all in our business are familiar with, that adoption curve. And that's kind of what's happening with wireless collaboration and people who still want VGA wall plates with simple control. They're not on that curve yet, but some people want to get right on the beginning of that curve. Apple has made a business out of taking technologies that everybody is familiar with and moving them back to the beginning of the curve. Telephones, Walkmans, which they called iPods, watches now. Common everyday technology that they can take and go back and say, you know what, we're starting a new curve with this, and where are my early adopters? And they can't do that with a television, so they've decided not to do it.
Yeah, that makes a whole lot of sense.
Real good points, man.
Mm-hmm. All right, as we wrap up here, we probably should have started with this story, but I'm not the smartest person in the world, so FCC, the FCC, and my buddy Josh Schrago is probably he's on vacation, so he's not doing anything. The FCC has given broadband support to UHD. What they're saying is, and this is a decision by the Federal Communications Commission, they're saying that they're going to redefine what broadband is. They're moving it from 4 megabytes per second to 25 megabytes per second for downloads and 1 to 3 uploads. This is important because when it comes to things like what we're doing here currently, which is like Clint alluded to, we're doing we're doing basically a video conference over a social platform, over Google. You can go into Polycom's or Cisco's or whoever's VTC. Having the definition of broadband move up is an important step. And what's going to happen then is not to bring back in net neutrality, but when you bring back in the net neutrality feature of broadband and what they're defining it as, I think it's an important step. John, we're going to start with you on this. Is there anything else that the FCC could do beyond this, and maybe jump it up again, I guess, to protect some of the VTC and some of the other internet-based stuff that guys and girls in the AV space do?
I guess my take most of my feed off of reading Josh's articles and things of that, and every time I try to read an FCC paper or Wheeler's response at the last event, and it's really deep and really hard, and it hurts my brains. But I guess to answer the question in somewhat of a direct fashion, I think that it's really disappointing that they didn't talk to us at a deeper level that they should have. And I don't think we're prepared. I think we're unprepared for the problems that we're really going to be faced with, and I think it's going to be a drag on our industry for a little bit. But again, as we mentioned earlier, we're on a social media platform doing a video conference. We always, as industry professionals, we would like to have an immersive conferencing coming down broadband and having it work perfectly fine. But 2/3 of the world's okay with a Google Hangout. So I think that's the approach that they took. I think that they tried to go to a low common denominator on some of this stuff, and it's going to be a problem.
All right, Ernie, from your perspective, is there something that the FCC could have done better, maybe?
I don't know. I mean, it's hard to say. I couldn't help but read the article and keep thinking about the net neutrality discussion in my head. I mean, they kind of go part and parcel with each other, and I think I think it's important for them to continue to evolve the requirements behind what they consider, broadband internet and broadband access. I think it's also important for them to preserve that for everybody and keep it an open platform. But really, as applications like in-home telehealth and telemedicine become more and more approved by Medicare, Medicaid, health insurance, it's going to be really important to maintain an open pipe. And I think big telecom is using that to try and bolster their argument that well, we need to be able to set fast lanes for these types of things. But really, I mean, when you look at it, go back to the beginning of the Second Industrial Revolution when we had to set up a nationwide telephone communications infrastructure. Those types of arguments were made. I think what people realize is that what's good for the economy is an open and collaborative communications infrastructure, and by the FCC taking steps to increase that and evolve it, I think it's a good sign. I can't really say if they should have done more or not. That's not really my wheelhouse.
I think I think it's a good sign, but I think that there's an argument if we go to, let's say, television. It's one of those situations where they said, or let's even go to the IPv4 versus 6. When the internet first occurred, and why it was so successful is they thought out enough future, and there was enough of a standard, and there was enough of a platform for everybody to develop under that umbrella. And there was probably somebody 20, 30 years ago that said, oh, IPv4, we'll have enough IP addresses to last forever. Yeah. And now we found ourselves at the bottom. And again, I think that's what some of the stuff that the FCC is doing. We have to trust and we have to hope that they've been able to give it enough forethought that everybody like Kramer can build products that are going to will have time to come to market, and people will be able to recover their research. If not, it's a crushing failure. Mm-hmm. I think the ability to move it up a little bit, be adaptable, and try to stay ahead, that's an interesting approach. But where the real success to take the internet, they started it back in let's say 47, and it was good till 2013. Then they got to make some adjustments. That's enough time for people to make money on it, have it a stability, have people get adoption, that type of a situation. I'm not sure that happened this time.
Well, and the other thing is that you've got companies like Kramer, and I was going to pick on Clint for a little bit, is they got different internets. Let's be honest here. You have, Kramer's based in Israel. They have a different infrastructure. You have the Asia Pacific market, which according to Infocom is going to be the biggest market in the world for AV by 2016. That is incredibly different internet infrastructure. South Korea has the fastest internet and the most ubiquitous internet in the world. So they've got to take different approaches. I would imagine depending on what market they're in.
Yeah. Hey, listen, if you don't mind, Tim, is it possible for you to put that article back up on the screen for 1 second? Because I think one of the most interesting aspects of that article is buried in the third paragraph there.
Maybe.
While you're looking for that, I will also say that I think that from a marketing perspective, I hope I'm not out of my league here, that the H.265 codec is going to help us greatly in continuing the evolution from the Pro AV side of things that we're making into the internet, the IP world. So while they only moved the ball so far, so they moved the ball forward, and that's good. But they only moved it so far forward. In the meantime, it's good news is that we're going to have H.265.
And again, I think that, and I agree, and that's how even what we in the marketplace have done. Oh, well, it's not going to fit in the pipe. Squeeze it. Compress it. Do something. And that's what what I enjoy is that's what makes America great. You know what I mean? And then somebody better make the pipe bigger. I can only squeeze it so much.
Yeah, I don't know if Tim, if you can get that up there, but
I got it. You were asking way too much of my computer. Hang on. Goodness.
I'll just
you need a good collaboration tool is what you need, Tim.
I need something.
Tim, do me a favor, because every time I talk, it goes away. But can you read that part out loud about the commissioner who said, okay, there it is.
FCC Chair Tom Wheeler didn't get a unanimous vote. However, dissenting Commissioner Michael O'Reilly derided the new definition, saying UHD is not expected to be widely adopted for years to come. Apparently, he hasn't seen sales figures and projections on the fast-growing UHD TV market, but Commissioner Jessica, I'm not going to pronounce that, pushed for an even more ambitious goal, a download speed of 100 megabytes per second. Anything short of that shortchanges our children, our future, and our new digital economy. I like her.
I do too. She rocks, man.
That other guy's a little bit. I don't know if it's political or
that's the tone I got too from that. Yes. Like it's kind of like it's not that big of a deal. We can just keep it where it is and everything's fine. But why don't shortchange anything?
And yeah, I'm going to take the other thing I'm going to take out of it. She certainly seemed to be the youngest in the group as well. So that's always a good verifier to go. I always go to my teenage daughter and say, "So I'm thinking about this," and she goes, "Oh, you just do it this way. You're an idiot." And they do, you know what I mean? And because they're already they're on that curve that Clint talked about earlier.
Look at the commissioner on the FCC who doesn't think UHD is going to be widely adopted anytime soon. That is scary.
Well, I mean, look at internet too, right? And educational or institutional internet infrastructures, they are requiring, at minimum 100 meg bandwidth pipes because of the amount of data and information they're sharing. It's got to be scaled up to that, and I think that as colleges, education, moves to a more collaborative online type of paradigm, then the need is going to be there, and other countries are going to start putting these in place, and they're going to start exceeding what we can do in the United States. And with higher education and colleges and universities being such an economic driver here in the United States, it puts us at a disadvantage if our healthcare and educational resource institutions don't have the resources they need in order to do their work, which would keep America at the top of the game.
Agreed.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well said.
All right, I think we're going to end on that note. Ernie, we'll give you the first shot here. Ernie from Sonero, a senior sales engineer. Thank you, sir.
Thank you for having me. You can find me on Twitter at Ernie_Beck. That's ERNIE_Beck, BECK. If you want, you can also follow our networking group here in Baltimore, D.C. area called Integrate Baltimore. We're on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, and our Twitter handle is at Integrate_B More.
Right, very good.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, man. Mr. John Green from Advanced AV. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. It was great. I'm always at jgreen6. It's my Twitter handle. I'm relatively active and engaging at any given time. Much of that, all those opinions are mine. But if you want to see other activity, I'm in LinkedIn. But Advanced AV is www.advancedav.com. So stop on by anytime you want.
And your site is relatively new. It's very
it's nicely refreshed, and we're still a little bit more than a paint job. We put some new content up there, some rearranging some things, and it's probably worth a week from now to go look. We got some interesting news, so we'll put up there.
I think your marketing director deserves a raise. I'm just saying.
Yeah, she says that too.
His marketing director helps.
I guess Clint's going to jump in on this because he's a marketing guy too.
Yeah, absolutely. Last but not least, Clint Hoffman. Thank you, sir.
Well, thank you all. I appreciate it. Ernie, John, Tim, it's been a wonderful experience. Kramer is at www.kramerus.com here in the United States, and I invite you to please stop by the booth at Infocom and visit us, because as a result of this participation in this event, I'm going to declare the Kramer booth a marketing spin-free zone this year.
That's great.
Nice, very well done, very well done. And so we talked about this a little bit off the air. They just started to announce the availability of the new K-Touch, which I got to see it at ISC this year. Presumably, again, it would be at the Infocom booth.
Good move. It's really a good move. Good product. Good idea. Really is.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of booths, you can come by ours as well. We'll be at Infocom. After popular demand, we'll have the Aviation chapstick there. 6667 is the booth, and there will be 2 flavors this year because my board said so. There'll be cherry as well as mint. So, but if you want more information about us, aviation.tv, aviation.tv. The guys are working on a new website. They tell me by Infocom, so that I'm crossing my fingers. We've had a couple things we're doing, and we're going to just roll this out slowly, just because that's how I do things, and I'm kind of deliberate in this. But one thing we're doing is we're bringing some really important and really great companies alongside us to help us do what we do, including cover shows like Infocom and ISC, and Kramer is one of those companies. So Clint, and it had nothing to do with this. I scheduled Clint a month or so ago. But thank you so much. I just wanted to take the opportunity.
We love what you do, man.
So, but yeah, go check out Kramer if you would. Our website is avnation.tv, avnation.tv. You'll find this program and a host of others. Like everybody going to InfoComm, we've got a lot of stuff going on and doing booth tours and stuff like that. Our booth, again, is 6667. We'll be doing this very program about a month from now. We'll be doing between 2 and 4 on Friday of the show, so come by, be a part of the audience, be a part of the panel. The hours of 2 to 3 actually will be episode 200. So that'll be kind of cool. I'm not sure what we're going to do yet, but I'm sure we'll do something special. So thanks so much for watching. Thanks so much for listening. This has been AV Week.